So that's us. That's us live. Many thanks for joining me, Fleetside. I'm trying to think how long it's been since we last had we've exchanged a few emails, but last time you would have been in this same studio. Would it have been on last year? No, I think we did something after that, didn't we?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the last time. It's been a little while, and in fact, in there along the way, we had Eric Ozzie on as one of your guests, I think, on that.
Yes,
podcast. But it has been a little while. We've exchanged a few papers and thoughts, but haven't done a podcast in a while.
Exactly. No. So first of all, how's lockdown going? Yeah, the hair's grown a bit. You're looking a bit younger, man.
Yeah. Well, that's this is part of my. So I play guitar, so the hair has to. That's what that's all about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Part of the image.
Well, that's right. You could easily be one of the members of Supertramp, which is the band that I've always rated as the number one.
Yeah, excellent.
The band I've seen them live. They're just absolutely brilliant. Not unfortunately, when I saw them, they didn't have Roger Hodgson.
Okay.
With them. He left and he's doing his own thing, But
no, they were a stellar band, which is odd because as a guitar player, I was trained to like sort of the harder rock stuff, and then Supertramp came along. I didn't know how to classify that.
Yeah.
But you're right. Excellent band.
The thing is, going back over the history of music, if you look at somebody from as long ago as the Renaissance period of Bach and some of those composers, you wouldn't listen to one of their tunes and immediately be humming it the next day in the shower. It takes ages to sink in, and that's what I found with Supertramp. There wasn't a sort of an immediate, oh, this is catchy.
Yeah.
It took a while to sink in, but in the end, you actually enjoy it more, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's and you could wear out the albums with albums back in my day. You'd literally wear out the albums playing them over and over and over again.
Yep. I think I've got every Supertramp album, every Genesis album, going back to their 1967 was their first album. From Genesis to Revelation, I think it was called, and Pink Floyd, and they were my
Pink Floyd for sure. Less on Genesis, Supertramp there, like Led Zeppelin and whatnot, but Pink Floyd's right up there for sure.
Yeah.
I think the first time Supertramp came to Ottawa was 1974, as I recall.
Wow.
And coming and didn't know what a Supertramp was, but
Well, it comes from a book, I believe, written in about 1910, the autobiography of a Supertramp.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow. That's why we hang out with you, Paul. You know all the stuff.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of with you with the Genesis when it comes to the fact that for me it's Supertramp with Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
And then was it Steve Hackett that left, and then they were three, and they didn't have that much going after that. Follow You, Follow Me was good. Duke, but they became very poppy, which obviously was
not our style.
Yeah, well, it was Phil Collins, wasn't it, that did that? But when you listen to stuff like A Trick of a Tale, I really like that stuff. I always remember I was in a music class. The whole class, an all boys school that I went to, the whole class had music, and the music teacher said, because we were about 13, 14 at the time, I am not going to have a class where we get the hymn books out. Well, we could just get the hymn books out and make you sing a load of hymns, but I realized that there'll be a few singing in the back row, and the rest of you, well, you won't give a damn, and you'll just be messing about at the back or miming or whatever, and I don't want this to be like that. So he actually offered people the opportunity to bring in records that would be played and then evaluated. And that's when I first heard A Trick of the Tail, and Dance on the Volcano, Los Endots. I thought, my goodness, that is great stuff to listen to. So anyway,
yeah, it sounds like a good move on the part of the teacher. I know when I was 13, 14, I was being playing violin of all things, and when the teacher was out of the room, we'd all put the violin on our knee and try to play it like a guitar. It was what we really wanted to be
playing. Yeah. Now, Jaznaz, this is both. This is live and a preview, and we should explain. We were going to try and do a preview on Zoom, and we had audio issues. So, quick as a flash, we changed over to StreamYard. But of course, I can't actually record. I don't have the software to record StreamYard and put it on later. So it was a lot easier to just do a quick live chat with you. And obviously, looking forward to this Sunday for the Dude.
Yep.
And certainly you were a big part of my channel in the last one, because you'd done a whole series of videos with slides that were absolutely amazing.
You had to put up with.
Well, I've still got on the channel a playlist specifically of Fleetside presentations.
Yeah, I think you put it to music or something too. There was something you had done in there, but the good old days.
Yep. But no, the reason I mention about the music is, of course, you've got your guitar behind you, and you do play in a very slick band. Remind us the name of the band.
The Gnarlies. So we're
the Gnarlies,
we're based in Ottawa, in Canada. And doing the local pubs and whatnot, but of course with everything locked down, that's so the idea now is to get into recording. And,
yes.
Given that you really can't get out and socialize anymore.
Yep. Same here. I've been doing a lot of recording of particularly jazz standards on the piano, using the sort of keyboard workstation facilities. Just lay down a drum track, then a bass, left hand, right hand, instant lounge piano. Because there's the sort of gigs I used to do with the Cayley band. I mean, the last gig I did was the 2nd of March last year. That's at venues like the hotel that we go and play at, and it's and I had a message to say that one couple were being allowed to have their wedding at the hotel in May, but with severely restricted numbers of guests and absolutely no evening's entertainment.
Yeah.
So they're going to wait. So they're going to have the wedding to get married, but they're going to have the reception next year before they go on honeymoon. So.
Yeah, you can have a reception as long as you don't enjoy it.
Exactly. But yes, things will eventually get back to normal, won't they? I mean, they can't. There comes a point, and it was quite early on, and it was. I don't wish to sound political because I don't discuss politics, but I remember something quite poignant said by Donald Trump, and it was to say, well, when does the sort of the treatment for this become worse than the problem itself?
Mm.
But I suppose there's been a lot of people that have succumbed to the dreaded COVID, so we just have to.
Yeah, I look at in addition to COVID. So COVID is, people can think what they want about COVID, but in parallel, important to look at also where the UN's going with Agenda 2030 and where the World Economic Forum's going with the Great Reset. So, in parallel to COVID, there's a lot of transformation going on in the world that we don't really hear about. Mm-hmm. And I would just suggest keeping an eye on both balls.
Yes.
Which harkens me back to the Stephen Avery scenario. One of the fascinating elements there is that the mainstream media has stayed silent throughout. at conspicuous times, as in essence cheering for the state, which is kind of odd.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, on the other hand, journalists, particularly in Wisconsin, they, as John Farrack once said, you're not going to get very far as a journalist if you're telling people in Wisconsin that the Green Bay Packers suck as a football team.
Yeah. Yeah, and so there's sort of a protocol or an etiquette.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if you look at the public, I think they are driven by an etiquette that the mainstream media has to respond to. But I think similarly, the government, the police, the courts, and all the way up to the Supreme Court have clearly followed, I would call, an etiquette in their mind over an objective view of fact. And so in the end, I look at the whole Stephen Avery situation, and I refer to it as the Stephen Avery. I always look at Brendan Dassey as being collateral damage to the Stephen Avery saga. So I don't mean any slight of Brendan in there. But it's fascinating that notwithstanding expanding logic that corroborates that, for sure, they made a murderer here. The whole institution continues to try to maintain the etiquette that he should be guilty, and therefore will keep him guilty.
Yes. Yeah.
Truth be damned.
Exactly. Yes. I don't know if you've managed to follow much of the sort of within the recent. Well, is it 2 weeks? We've had a couple of we had a motion filed by Kathleen Zellner with this sighting of Bobby Dassey and another gentleman pushing the RAV4 before dawn, before daybreak. And then we've had the motion, the response from the state. One of the things that fascinates me, and I did send an email to Steve Drizzt, and I invited him to come on this weekend, and he said, "Look, I'm very sorry, I'm not going to be able to manage, but you've got an excellent team there." But I would love to ask Steve Drizzt the question of, how difficult is it to represent Brendan Dassey when there is so much focus and belief that Bobby Dassey is the is the main culprit, or at least an accomplice in all of this. And now with this latest development, here he is being identified. What is it? Several hours before Pam is gets divine inspiration from God himself and is led to the burning bush over by the RAV4.
Right, and so Bobby was with someone else pushing a RAV4.
Yes,
like the one. So, but why? This is information I think we would have loved to have years ago. What was the reason for the delay in the gentleman stepping forward to? Do we know that?
Yeah, but basically he phoned up the sheriff's department, Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, spoke to apparently a lady detective, and was told, don't worry about it, we've got the right person. Yeah. Because he once it all was obvious that Steve was being arrested for all of this, he got in touch. We don't know exactly when, whether it was that day or a couple of days later. But of course, the problem is that I'm not sure that if you'd have to obviously check, because every phone call to Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department is recorded. So it might. I don't know if it's possible to get hold of that particular recording on that day of everything that came in.
There, you would think that in response, when the truthers responded with all these analyses, that he would engage somebody on that, but maybe was he in any way threatened or intimidated or?
I mean, the thing is, we've got quite a lot of this, haven't we? We've got Kevin Ramlow, who came forward and said, yeah, I saw the car at the turnaround at the Eastern Rivers Dam, and I told an officer, and that officer was Andy Colburn. It was when Making a Murderer came out that I suddenly put two and two together, thought, hold on a sec, that's the same fella. You know, we've got all this sort of stuff of you know, things being reported to the sheriff's department, and of course them not taking any action on it, going back to the phone call in 1995.
Yeah. That's why I think the truther community has done an excellent, stellar job, as always, and continues to. And certainly your leadership is extremely important, having worked with Eric Ozey, and in some ways he's passed the baton, and you're valiantly soldiering forward. But absent the truther community, this whole thing would be tucked up in a neat ball and filed on a shelf somewhere. And
well, yeah, I mean that's obviously that's the title of the weekend, to keep talking till they're walking. But you know, I mean, this idea of passing the baton, to me, you know, I would have to start drinking Dr. Pepper to do that. So that's something I'm not going to do. You ain't catching me drinking Dr. Pepper. I once did that. I did that in Australia. It was so funny because the dude spent a couple of hours going down into the center of Sydney to try and find somewhere that sold and it wasn't any old Dr. Pepper. He didn't like the diet stuff. It had to be the normal diet Dr. Pepper, and he found one can and brought it back. And the next morning, I'd got cans of Pepsi Max in there, and I inadvertently, you know, got what I thought was a can and started to drink it, and it goes, ugh,
yeah. Yeah, it's atrocious. I'm not a fan. Did they have that in Scotland when you were a kid, or?
Yes.
Yeah. We had it here, but I didn't think anybody bought it. I thought it was just on the shelf for.
Yes.
Who in the right mind? Yeah, not my cup of tea, I'm afraid. But,
No, it's no, not for me either. So the case in general, where are you kind of happy with the fact that it's possibly going to be remanded back? As I was saying to Juris yesterday, it just seems as if this is another hesitation.
Right.
And you know, it feels a little bit to me as if the state don't want to have to explain about handing back the bones, and they've sort of been let off the hook. You know, right. They've been let off having to do that because of this being remanded back. Makes me think that this is a big deal. This eyewitness.
Yeah, and I would say most of the evidence that surfaced so far is more material than certainly the state would let on. The handing back the bones, for example, would be a very flagrant disregard for due process, and nonetheless they did it. And as you're pointing out, they've been sort of let off the hook, so it's one thing for the state to exercise, as one Redditor once used the term, mental gymnastics, and I love that. I stole that. I use that, but the mental gymnastics associated with covering their tracks is embarrassing. And then the courts, though, that's the part you look at, and they're the officiators that seem to cover for them. So in the end, this whole thing is not just about Stephen Avery and somebody wrongly incarcerated. We're dredging up all kinds of questions on where the moral compass is for the institutions down there.
Yeah, could we substitute for these mental gymnastics the cognitive dissonance words?
Yeah, cognitive.
Yeah. that was one of my favorites. Yeah. I mean, the other thing I thought about was that it seems quite that there seems to be a even heightened level of animosity between like Kathleen Zellner, obviously the Lisa Comfer, and this Judge Angie Sukovich, and really what I'm hoping is that it gets remanded, okay, and there's a delay, which is a shame, but then it all comes forward, and eventually somebody says, why is this taking so long? Well, because we've got this judge who was basically, she wasn't being a judge, she was just being a district attorney. She was being the prosecution. That's what you're up against in this, and hopefully then that will be seen by everybody, and they'll go, well, these sort of things, they need to change.
Yeah, and I would say that I would characterize Ms. Zellner's challenge as having to not just exercise the powers of a lawyer, but be a PR expert to get out there and raise the ire of this embarrassing situation to the point where the delta between where the institutions are going and what is objective truth is so apparent that they're sort of embarrassed into making a call otherwise. I'm quite astounded that a judge would. Now I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a judge, obviously, but it'd be interesting for those on the team who are to opine on that. Because they travel in with a following and in legal circles. So all this precedent established by some of the calls that are being made are. I would say quite atrocious. And then if you look at when Brendan Dassey going all the way up to the Supreme Court, and very close, who would have thought that the balance would be tipped? But the courts aren't quite what I had hoped they would be.
Yeah, I think in Brendan's case, what is particularly galling, and I was having a chat with Tracy Keir about this, is the fact that now, Brendan's case is being used as an example of, just how bad things can be, that it's clear and obvious that he was coerced. And
aren't they using it in the sense that he might be learning impaired or challenged? Is that or is it
everything to do with
coercion sort of thing?
Things like the actual interview itself, where it was being the way that was handled, particularly bad. But then things like the when it got to the Court of Appeals in Brendan's case, they did nothing to acknowledge, Brendan's limitations, other than they ticked like boxes, like they gave him soda, so that meant they were really friendly towards him. He was, it was this box ticking exercise that then the state could say, well, he was handled fairly, everything was done correctly, and it's like, no, it's not. This is not how you treat a 16-year-old. I mean, for me, one of the biggest insults in all of this is the fact that they interviewed him first of all at Mishicot High School. I mean, where was his guidance teacher?
Yeah, he was certainly vulnerable and left alone. No parent, no other peers that would be able to and look after his better interests. And I think he was manipulated. It was a misrepresentation of what they were intending and where they were going, which I guess is part of the fair process these days. But I think in the end, the courts didn't. There's a lot they didn't care to observe and discuss. And I can only think it'd be interesting to, again, for the legal folk on our team to, is it a matter that the courts are so predisposed on the precedent they would set and the fear of where that would take the narrative for future cases in the interests of society? There's got to be some greater noble purpose. But for sure, it didn't seem to me that they were objectively observing fact and trying to separate truth from untruth. They seem to have an orientation and successfully solidified. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. You know, they back in 2003, they were really worried about, you know, what was going to happen with Stephen's case. You know, that would open the floodgates, and we saw, didn't we, in that great documentary, How to Fix a Drug Scandal. You know, 60,000 cases in the end thrown out because of the work of Luke Ryan, the one defense attorney. Just to take you back, though, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's been a bit of a circus the last week or so over this question of, you know, you touched on it then. You said no parent present. Was it because Barb was told, you know, you cannot come along? And you know, she's saying, you know, that you know, I wanted to be with Brendan, but they said no, you're not allowed, and you know, bizarrely, that, you know, even that we would arrest you. You know, so there's been a bit of to and fro, shall we say. Things have gotten quite heightened in tension over this, you know, the issues of, you know, Barb. What does she know about what happened? What does she not know? It's
I mean, it could be that. It could be that she is hiding something, and it's part of a manipulation. It could very well be that she had trust and confidence in those that were seeking this thing we call justice, you know, that clearly were manipulating to seems to me they had an agenda and were trying to fill it. And so, you know, Barb may very well have become collateral damage as well. And so I obviously don't know, but they can be, those same folk can reach back and slap you too. It's the intimidation factor is always there. So you really trust law enforcement, and you trust a DA, and you trust the courts to be honest. And if that trust is misplaced, many things go to hell in a handbasket in a hurry. And and to me, that's kind of where we're at. So the greater challenge for Ms. Zellner is not just to win a case, but to move the mountain, the circus of bizarre, to cause it to right itself, you know. And
but I must admit, if there's one person capable of doing that, and you know, who's to say that, you know, if you know, Steve Drizzen was Steve's lawyer now, or any other lawyer, but Kathleen Zellner certainly does have this track record. But it does seem to be, to me, as if, certainly in Brendan's case, the releasing of Making a Murderer, and then a few months later, Judge Duffin grants the writ of habeas corpus, and the state are left with no option, because Brad Schimmel, as soon as Making a Murderer came out, is saying, you know, don't worry, if you know, if we need to, we've spoken to the Holbachs, and we've assured them that we would continue fighting this, and we would you know, fight it in a retrial. And you're like, why? You know, it's just bizarre. And anyway, that's nearly half an hour that's flied away in next to no time. So I'm going to let you crack on. Anything exciting for the rest of the day for yourself?
Well, I got to try and do a little more music recording. I'd rather put this heavy stuff down and try to lift a guitar and record something. I'm fighting with software Cubase. I don't know.
Yes.
So I know enough to be dangerous. So that'll be the headache for the evening. But looking forward to the weekend, and just before we sign off, on behalf of everybody, thank you again, Paul, and and your teammate Eric for all that you've done in this stuff.
Yeah, couple of things there. Yeah, you mentioned Cubase. Back in 1991, I actually wrote a book of music, 2 books of music, using Cubase, because most people used Cubase obviously for the sequencing software, but it's also got a music printing facility, and that's how I did my book. I went in with my MIDI accordion and connected it to the computer, and what I played came up on the screen as music. But interestingly enough, a few weeks back we had Brad Dassey on the show, explaining how to use the Ableton software.
There's a number of good. I didn't realize Cubase went back that far, but
it was version 1. It was the very, very first edition of Cubase. Yeah, I know that's bizarre, isn't it? So I'm not going to. We've been very cagey, I must admit. We've not really talked much in. We know who are hosting the various hour slots, but we've been very quiet about the guests, because at the moment we're still waiting for confirmation from one or two. But we look forward to your presence with us on 1 or 2 slots during Sunday. So many thanks for that. I think we're hopefully me and Millbilly are going to put together a little bit of a dream team of experts in various fields. Sorry, I meant to ask. I sent you that article that was sent to me. Talking about the logic and stuff. And it seemed pretty good. So I think at some point it would be quite, maybe after this weekend we could get together and go through that particular article if you would be agreeable with that.
So I certainly love the word logic, and if I were to try to extend that in any way, it's some of the coincidence of events even before we had heard the name of Teresa Halbach. Coincidence through time, coincidence across people, coincidence across malfeasance. Statistically, that's a very important argument to reinforce the notion that there's a lot of manipulation to unpack here, and that's for people to
do. Okay, well. Once again, Fleetside, many thanks for coming on.
Cheers.
Apologies that I didn't manage to get the audio issue resolved, but glad that we had a chance of a chat. To everybody in the chat, we'll have to finish because in 4 minutes' time there's a premiere, and it's with Travis. And I can confirm that Travis will be joining me at 11 o'clock Central Time on the Sunday, when we'll be having a chat with Vic Fazell from the Confession Killer documentary. Did you ever manage to watch that one about Henry Lee Lucas?
I try to capture them all. But
yes. No, it was funny because chatting with Travis, he remembered bits about the documentary that even I'd forgotten. So anyway, I'll catch you later. Many thanks for taking time out to have a chat, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
Sounds good.
Many thanks.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers, and thank you everybody in the chat. Bye for now.